The vision for today's guest is clearly on the right track. You'll meet him coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Real Estate Career Institute on the corner of 17 Bypass and Wachesaw Road in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. We're focused on public service, and we're visiting with Senator Ray Cleary of Senate District 34, serving Horry, Georgetown, and Charleston counties. Good morning, Senator Cleary.
It's good to be here this early.
Very exciting to get you in at 7 o'clock on a Friday morning. Are you okay if we call you Ray just
Please
for 30
call
minutes?
me Ray. That's what everybody does that likes me. So.
Yeah, let's hear what about
I answer the other ones.
that's right.
The other days, but anyway.
Big opportunity to get you in, and of course the real excitement, you actually lived relatively close to here at one time, and you've known the Wacomaw for quite a while.
I live about 5 minutes from here, Greg, and it's just the best part of South Carolina, and it's a lot of senators are jealous that this is the area that I get to serve.
That's right, yeah. Horry, Georgetown, you serve, just for viewers who are not familiar, obviously our viewers in the PD who may not have seen you live time, for folks who are not aware of this district, Senate District 34, is that a new district?
No, it was Arthur Ravenel's district, but after the census, they changed it, so it's now about 50% of Horry, 34%, 35% of Georgetown, and about 10, 15, 20% of Charleston, but it just goes right along the coast.
Right. Do you actually cross the waterway in Horry County? Or
I do not cross the waterway. It stays from the waterway to the ocean, so it's a real nice area, and it's like a lot of common interest, so it's easier to serve because very tourist-oriented, very retiree-oriented, and I don't serve a lot of different constituent bases. It is basically a single focus.
You're known in two daily newspapers, the Post and Courier there, the Sun News, and of course the Georgetown Times, the Coastal Observer, pretty much that stretch.
Yes, sir.
So does it start in the Murrells Inlet area?
It starts actually just south of 501.
Okay, wow.
Hidden in Hidden Harbor, Harbor Lakes, and then it goes south and kind of goes in and out, but basically from 544 south, it includes all of Socastee, Garden City, and Surfside.
That is
and then all through the Wacomaw Neck.
Had you thought about service for a long time, Ray?
I've enjoyed service, but more public service with YMCA, Boy Scouts, Rotary, Sertoma, Kiwanis, Lions Club. I've enjoyed service. I thought at one point in time it would be nice to do public service as far as political office to give the everyday person a voice. But, you know, as a dentist, I'm kind of tied to my office. And even now, I work Mondays and Fridays and Wednesday mornings. And Mondays I work 7 in the morning seeing patients till 6. I work Fridays and, you know, go into the office today after work, after we're done with this. And then when the Senate starts, which is just January to June, I don't work Wednesdays in my dental office. And then I have 3 other dentists, so they cover me pretty well. Our office is staffed, you know, very well from 7 to 6, 5 days a week.
That is tremendous. That's the office on Glens Bay Road. Is that your principal or only office?
That's my only office.
Right. Very well known. And how long have y'all been there on Glens Bay Road?
Well, I opened my first office in Surfside in 1975. We moved to the new office. We moved to a second office on Glens Bay probably about 1985, and I built this office probably in 95.
Is that right?
So we've got a lot of friends in Surfside, Garden City, and back, and you know, we've had more friends than patients, I think.
I pass your office almost every day. My daughter attends the Learning Tree on Glens Bay Road, and and if she didn't see Dr. Winnie, we'd probably be in your office right up the street.
Dr. Newman's a great lady, and Learning Tree is just a great institution.
It is, absolutely. Are you originally from the area, Ray?
No, my mom was from Kentucky, my dad was from Cincinnati, but he worked for Internal Revenue, so I tell people everybody hated to see him. They just kind of dislike seeing me sometimes. But we moved around a lot. He was a little smarter than I am. He passed the CPA his first time, and we lived in a lot of different cities. And I kind of wanted to come back to the Carolinas. And when I graduated from dental school in 1973, I was in the Air Force and asked to serve in the Carolinas, was stationed at Shaw Air Force Base.
Sure.
Enjoyed being back, and then moved to Surfside Beach to open my practice in 1975.
That is tremendous. That's more than, I hate to say it, Ray, that's more than 3 decades ago. 32 years.
It seems like it went by quickly.
You were a mere babe, yeah, babe in the wool. That's amazing. That's think about that as the practice increases or changes. What about some of the big changes over the last 32 years? Anything that really stands out in your mind? You think about even for patients, basically.
You know, they say that 55 to 60% of what we do now, we didn't do 30 years ago.
No.
Implant dentistry is probably one of the biggest changes that we do, veneers, lumineers. So the practice has really gotten into the cosmetic phase, and probably 40, 50 years ago, many people only expected to keep their teeth till they're 50 or 60. Now, you know, we would no sooner want to lose a tooth than a finger, and so and we're blessed in this area with an educated clientele that understands that the teeth are important for health.
Right, absolutely. You know, this is amazing. I thought about getting a dentist down. It's a dentist that starts with an END, a dental professional there. And the Triangle recently was just talking to me about the tooth and breaking down all the aspects. And it was fascinating hearing how it can truly impact your entire body.
It can. And it's been a great profession for me. It was something that both my sisters at one time were hygienists. One's an attorney now, and the other's a graphic designer. So dentistry has been a great profession.
Right, right. I was reading recently the 2006 annual report for Beach First National Bank. Saw some exciting news, but in there also saw your name that cropped up. That was something you got pretty involved in, obviously very involved in back in the mid-90s. Share with viewers real quick what that was like forming a bank.
Well, in 1981, in Surfside, a group of us formed a bank called Waccamaw State Bank.
Okay.
And I was on the board at that time, and we wound up doing a branch, and then we wound up selling those banks to Anchor Bank, which eventually sold to Carolina First. In 1991, some people came to us, 2 of my friends, and said they were interested in starting a bank. Mm-hmm. And I probably, because I had been on a board, I was chosen to be chairman of it. And we opened up, and it has been very, very successful. We built a green building, one of the first green buildings in Horry County, which is our new headquarters up on 38th Avenue. And it's a community bank, and we think it's the community bank, especially now that Anchor Bank, Coastal Federal are no longer local.
Sure.
So our headquarters is here. We're the only bank whose headquarters is in Myrtle Beach.
Is that right? The only bank that's physically headquartered in Myrtle Beach? That's right. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And so I think it's been good for the community, and I think we've served the area well. And I think we're viewed as the hometown bank, which is, I think, helps that community grow.
When you see the names of the folks, and I saw there in 06 in that annual report an 84% growth year to year, which was a tremendous record there. And of course with Walt Standish, I remember interviewing Walt 3 or maybe 4 years ago out at Myrtle Square Mall when the Herald was located there. Hearing him talk about the great opportunities he and Tommy Bouchette and David Morrow all in 1 week, and thinking about community banks. Obviously those banks have changed. Tommy's no longer, there's no longer a Sun Bank. It's now SCB&T. Crescent Bank, of course, is going through a lot of excitement there. And
Crescent's a great bank. Their headquarters is out of Charleston.
Right, Community First, yeah.
So Community First, and as I said, you said Sun Bank was bought by SCB&T, I think.
Right, SCB&T, absolutely. A lot happening, of course, recently, and as we think about your corridor there from more or less 501, the former Arthur Ravenel district, down into Charleston, what are some of the big issues that viewers may be thinking about right now that you hear as you're out on the street, or even meeting with your patients, seeing them on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday?
I think the 4 big issues are, number one, I think that we really saw last year crop up as coastal insurance, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I think roads. I think a lot of the people who live here feel like there's runaway growth, and we don't have control of the growth. And the 4th thing is immigration. And immigration is a real concern to many residents in here. And we do a survey every year. And I would say 80% of the people that actually respond to the survey those are the 3 or 4 big issues that they really have, and they're very consistent on those issues.
What are some of, when you see surveys like that, and speaking of immigration, what are some of the issues for residents in the Horry, Georgetown, and Charleston County area, or throughout the state? Is that a survey you all do statewide, or just in your district?
That's a survey I do in my district,
right.
But I do think that there has been some statewide surveys, and I think if you see it from a national level.
Sure.
And I think the bare minimum that we see is people want to know who's here. You know, how we handle it is one thing also, but they think we need to know that we have an idea of who actually is in this country and who is in this area. They worry about services and they worry about some other things, but it's as I said, it's a dividing issue. 2 years ago in the Senate, we couldn't even get 27 out of 46 senators to want to talk about it, because in some of the rural areas they were concerned with their, you know, how they would get their crops, you know, picked, and how they would get buildings, and even sometimes the chamber is ambivalent in the business community because they're using a lot of these workers. So it's a hard thing. We think it probably should be done nationally, but we have worked, and we do have a bill that we got through the Senate last year on illegal immigration. It's in the House, and it is not as is not as much as I think we need to do. But one of the things that I put in there, along with Senator Campson, is that if we catch anybody forging documents, the people that we catch forging the documents would be responsible for any expenses or costs that were incurred by the state because of the use of those documents.
Business owners, for instance, yes.
Well, I don't think the business owners forge them as much as maybe some other people.
Oh, okay.
You know, I think with the business owners, we just need to be able to protect the business owners, that when they find that they have the ability to know, is this person legal or illegal?
Oh, I get it. Forgive me. Sure, sure.
And that. So that's what we need.
Obviously, on behalf of small business owners like yourself and so many others, that's a fine line because, as we know, in the Myrtle Beach area with 2,700 restaurants, restaurateurs to a great degree are dependent on a large immigrant population in the Horry, Georgetown County area. So just for that industry, if it was only that industry, not hoteliers and not residential builders or commercial builders, a lot of folks are dependent on a very large Hispanic community.
And I think the business community, in some aspects, would like to do the right thing. But it's confusing because, you know, there's 15 documents out there that are floating around. And which ones in that? And South Carolina's done good. If you look at most of the illegals, they're not driving with South Carolina driver's licenses. They go up to North Carolina to get them. So in certain aspects, we have been proactive, and in others, we're working on it. And it's kind of like a little momentum thing. I think that, you know, 3 or 4 years ago when we introduced it, we budged a little, and now we're getting more traction. And I think the public is making the legislature aware that, you know, there needs to be resolution, and I'm hoping that we'll get it in the next session.
Good, good. I want to talk a little about all 4 of those issues. Of course, you talked about coastal insurance, runaway growth. There was another issue recently in our show sponsor, the Myrtle Beach Herald. I read a little piece about alcohol sales or beer and wine. Share with viewers a little bit about, just give them a quick summary maybe of what was written there in the Myrtle Beach Herald, and disclaimer there, obviously my paper. But
it was very good, and Tom Adair, the editorial writer, I give a lot of credit to. I enjoy reading his editorials, and he's usually right on point most of the time.
He and Steve Porter, that's right. Those two team up quite a bit.
They are very good, and I usually can't take any, and I can't give them any grief. But on this one, I can understand their confusion, because this past year when we were doing it, what's happened is the beer manufacturers now are doing some custom brewing, and you know, and they're getting into some just like microbrewing, and so they're able to sell beers at a higher alcohol content.
Right.
You know, 14% beers or 12% beers or whatever. And when we were studying it in the Senate, what I realized is they were calling it non-alcoholic beverages. So I had to laugh that we considered beer and wine a non-alcoholic beverage in this state. I think the way it went about, the historical sense, was in 1895 when they did the South Carolina Constitution. I think from what we were told, they outlawed alcohol. And you had dry counties a lot down in the South. You had the Bible Belt. You had, for the longest time, brown bags and mini bottles. But we've never gone to changing the Constitution. So back in the 40s, 50s, or 60s, when people wanted to be able to serve wine in a restaurant or a beer in a restaurant, the way they did it without that brown bag was the clever politicians back then, and I'm not clever enough to have been there, they said, well, here's the way we get around the Constitution. We'll call anything below 6 or 7%, we'll call it a non-alcoholic beverage.
Is that right?
And so that way we don't have to necessarily try to change the Constitution. And so that worked well for the last umpteen years. And now recently, because the brewing people and the beer people came and said, we would like to offer choices. And you know, we're all about choices in society.
Sure.
We like to offer different choices at a higher level. We found it was going up against that clever law we passed many, many, many years ago. And so we had to get around it. And it went on the surface, it looks kind of interesting that we've classified beer and wine as a non-alcoholic beverage.
Yeah, not kind of interesting. It looks very interesting. It's
I don't know how we do it, because you know, if it's a non-alcoholic beverage, how does it? Somebody that's 15 or 16, why aren't they allowed to buy it?
Sure, absolutely.
So there's a lot of plays in there, but it's kind of funny that we spent a lot of time in the Senate. Most people probably don't know, in South Carolina legislature, we are paid $10,320 a year. You know, so most of the people that I see in the legislature, they're doing it for public service.
Right.
You know, at that level, it's not really for remuneration.
No.
And so they try hard.
Right.
And some people, if they think A, and some people B, so they try hard, and sometimes they just have to make changes in it from that standpoint. Just as an aside, I had somebody selling alcohol and said a lot of people who come down to Myrtle Beach or come down to the tourist area would like to be able to buy alcoholic, you know, bottles, liquor bottles, at 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening. In North Carolina, they're allowed to at 10, because when they come down and they check into the hotel and go out to eat and get their groceries, they find they can't get it till Monday. Well, I found that we cannot change it. We have to change the Constitution.
The state Constitution.
The state Constitution, to allow that package store to sell after 7 o'clock. So sometimes things are not as easily done.
Even in the independent Republic of Ori?
And you know, in the independent republic, we don't understand why we have to do this anyway.
Sure, that's right, absolutely. Ray, very interesting. You know, we think about so many things. Of course, you talked about runaway growth. You know, there was a great piece actually in the daily newspaper in the Myrtle Beach area last Thursday, talking about I-73, a good editorial there. Immediately adjacent was a letter to the editor talking about Carolina forests and some of the problems on Highway 501, and a new Walmart coming in there, and of course the Hard Rock theme park opening up, a lot more expansion and pressure on the roadways up there. Does that tie into runaway growth when we think about roads?
It does, because you know, the state has not raised the gas tax since 1986, so we're still at 16 cents a gallon. Well, back in 1986, a gallon of gas was $1, and a car only got about 20 miles to a gallon. We're still charging that, so we have a funding issue, and I think Horry County did a tremendous step forward, and I think Florence County did too, by doing a 1-cent local sales tax, which is going to create a lot of roads. But then you get the battle between the growth and property rights, and you know, if somebody has property that has been in the family for years and now they have a chance to sell it to Walmart versus the amount of traffic that it might cause.
Sure.
It's a balancing act that really gets resolved in a local area. We, in a statewide situation, what we're trying to do is just as best as possible meet the needs with the I-73s, the evacuation route, which we're really working hard on for the south end. We don't really have a very good evacuation route. Everybody in Surfside and Garden City is supposed to evacuate through Georgetown. And that was Waccamaw Neck was basically a forest.
Right.
And that bridge closes down after the winds get at a certain level. So those are issues from a statewide level, but it's hard to build the roads to keep up with the growth, and I think the growth is going to be there. You know?
That it is, absolutely. If a viewer needs to get off right now, get off to work, or get out to get family out, what's the best way to reach you? Is it best to reach you in Columbia if someone wants to talk to you? Obviously, your constituents, principally down this area, but you really serve the entire state to a great degree. Is there a good way for someone to reach you?
They can go to my webpage, and it gives all my home address. It gives my home number. A lot of times people reach me through my Senate email, which is listed clearyr@scsenate.org. So there's different ways, and sometimes they can just drop a letter off at my dental office. And
okay, great.
And I can
What's that website if someone wanted to go online?
The website is clearyr at scsenate.org.
Okay, that's your email address.
That's my email address.
How about if someone wanted to see? Do you actually have a website? I went online this morning. I think it printed out some info about you. It may actually be a political site.
It's a website, but we're in the process of updating it.
Sure.
And it's more of a graphic, and we want to go to a content website.
Right. Good for
and
you.
At my age, over 45, it's a learning curve when we get into the web thing.
That it is, no matter who you're working with. Absolutely.
If you're under 20, you understand it completely.
Not as many of our viewers are under 20, but that's good to know. We got about 5 minutes, Ray, and I actually was early this morning, 5:30 or so. It was kind of dark outside. I'm opening a letter here. I hate to say it's from Allstate, but they've been in it a long time. A letter that says in about 3 months, my home in Murrells Inlet, they're going to be unable to renew the Allstate policy because of its proximity to the coast. The property's extremely high risk for severe damage or total loss. Obviously, having this home almost a decade and thinking about a notice like this, Allstate's a pretty big company. Not to focus on them, but just coastal insurance, a big deal.
You know, we were told March a year ago by the insurance commissioner, Ms. Kitzman, that we would see a problem with insurance, but it was manageable. And she had the ability to change the wind pool, and she had the ability to, do some things. Mm-hmm. And we'd see a 15% increase probably in premiums. Unfortunately, last year we were seeing my dental office went from $4,000 to $16,000 in insurance premiums. It is a problem. Allstate was going to drop 12,000 people along the coast. Farm Bureau Insurance of South Carolina, which is a small company based in South Carolina, was going to drop a third or a fourth of their people along the coast this coming year if we didn't do anything. So the two issues that you have with insurance is availability and cost. Now, it's very hard to dictate cost to insurance companies. The best way to do cost is to get more competition and more people.
Right.
But availability, what do people do if they can't buy it? And so Ms. Kitzman and I think the governor was more, let's let the market handle it. And finally, I think on the urging of the Senate and the House, he became a little proactive. He put a fellow senator named Scott Richardson in. And Scott Richardson was very aggressive with the insurance companies, as much as he could be. Mm-hmm. Back in the 80s, we were so aggressive with the auto insurances that we went from 30 auto companies to 4. So you 20 of them just left the state. So you can't be too aggressive with insurance companies. And so what we did was we said, what do we need to do? And he looked at expanding the wind pool and expanded it to one level. And when he saw that it met the needs, especially in the northern part of Myrtle Beach, but it really didn't meet the needs in Georgetown or in the south end. So about 2 months later, he re-looked at it and expanded the wind pool a little bit this way. Now, we told everybody when you expand the wind pool, it will not mean lower rates.
Right.
But it will mean that you can get insurance.
You can get it. Mm-hmm.
And then what he's done, which is just starting to take effect, is, and it hadn't been done before, he's actually tiered level 1, level 2, so that if you're close to the ocean or the water, that you may pay a higher, if you're in the wind pool, you may pay a higher rate than if you're in the wind pool and you're farther away from the water. Mm-hmm. Okay? But the primary goal is to make it more available. Now, we signed a fairly comprehensive bill that we think will have some long-term effects, which will allow tax credits for improving your structures and will allow you to insure at different levels, and that you could go into different premium levels and that. But the key to solving the insurance issue will be to entice more people to come down here and write insurance.
Right.
And I think also if we could get the federal government to look at hazardous insurance, hurricane insurance like they look at flood insurance, it would be a big help. But the state cannot take that liability on. I think Florida has, and I think they have a tremendous liability if they get hit by a hurricane. And a lot of insurance companies actually left there and created more insurance opportunities in this state.
I think there were at least one or two other key topics to focus on. Unfortunately, we're virtually run out of time, Ray. As we think about late 2006, folks were announcing opportunities for a presidential seat, which they wouldn't take until January of 2009, with an election in November of 2008. Have you contemplated your thoughts for November of 2008 as we're moving in that direction? Is public service something that you've taken fondly with?
I think in the Senate it is all based on seniority. And so at this point in time, I just envision myself as trying to represent this area for as long as they will allow me to build up our seniority so that we get our voice heard. And one of the things along the coast is not having your voice heard. We've been kind of, the purse strings, but we don't get a lot of respect, and I think that's changing with some of the people that we have. And I'm hoping that I'll have the opportunity to serve this area for a long enough time period that we can actually get our voice heard a little bit.
You feel you're working well with Yancey and Luke and Dick Elliott?
We have a good team up there, and the House members. Nelson Hardwick is a great new member. He got in the House when I got into the Senate. We work very well together, and I think it's actually helped the South Strand too a little bit. So I think we've got a good group of people here. If we can keep them in place a little bit, I think it'll work well.
Seniority is important. Thanks so much for being with us
this morning.
Thank you
this morning. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Senator Ray Cleary of District 34 coming up next. God works so mysteriously, doesn't he? God works so mysteriously. Think about that service to his country as a captain in the U.S. Air Force got him to Shaw Air Force Base, Sumter, to our now Palmetto State, to the Palmetto State. Something else got him down to the Murrells Inlet Surfside Beach area 32 years ago, opening his practice in 1975 as a dentist down there. Now God working again. Think about that. Community service opportunity. Passes by Sumter on the way to Columbia for 6 months of the year at least, making a difference to the community every day. Senator Ray Cleary. Check him out online or send him an email. You got that address.